Welcome, everybody. This is Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet. Today we have a guest speaker with us. His name is Stanley Luboff. He is going to be talking to us about Advantage Illinois, and it's a program that's offered through the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Stanley is the Advantage Illinois Program Manager, and with him, helping him along the way, is Sarah August, who is the Assistant Program Manager. Welcome, Stanley, to our webinar today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a great afternoon. I hope we get this done on time so you can go on with all these amazing plans you have for tonight.
All right, so let's get started. We're going to move on to our first slide, and we're going to talk a little bit about the origin of Advantage Illinois.
If we could go back to the previous slide, I just wanted to point out that those are the contact, that's the contact information for both me and Sarah. We're here in Chicago. And now we can go to the next slide.
All right.
Advantage Illinois is the largest, most successful small business financing program in the history of our state, and is probably the third or fourth most successful and largest program that the U.S. Treasury has fostered under the State Small Business Credit Initiative program. So let me tell you how we actually got this money. This is not state money. This is money that cannot be swept by the state. It can only be used for this small business financing program. The state used to have its own program funded with state funds, but during the difficulties of the past recession, that program basically was defunded as funds were swept. However, in 2010, the Congress passed something called the Small Business Jobs Act of 2010. What they did was they took $30 billion from the funds that were part of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. That's the program that is digging up all the highways between you and the places you want to go. Anyway, they took this $30 billion and they decided they were going to use it as a stimulus to create more small businesses, to create more jobs, and to help those small businesses in existence to expand. Out of that $30 billion, they took another, well, they took $1.5 billion as a separate part or a separate title of the Small Business Jobs Act, and they created the State Small Business Credit Initiative. It's an effort to allow the states to assist banks in making loans that they're reluctant to make. As you know, the banking community has been a little hesitant in making loans since the last recession. Therefore, they took $1.5 billion of that fund and they put it toward small business loans. Our portion, since our portion is based on our population and experience with unemployment during 2008 and 2009, our portion or allocation is $78,365,264. And we're supposed to use that money to convince banks to make loans that they're reluctant to make without our help. What do we mean by small businesses? Well, the rules are very flexible. This is a Treasury-run program. Treasury doesn't have experience in this kind of program, so they took some pretty liberal guidelines. We are able to assist companies that are considered small or medium-sized businesses with 750 or fewer employees worldwide at the time that they request our support. So in other words, if a company had 740 employees, they could still ask for our support, even if the result of our support would be to go above the 750 level. We're also able to assist loans or investments that are $20 million or less. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't help larger projects. We've actually helped projects that have been over $49 million. However, the portion that we were helping was less than $20 million, and therefore we were able to assist that particular project. So as you can see, we have quite a lot of leeway as to the kind of help we can provide to small businesses. How are we doing? Well, this is as of yesterday. We have assisted total loans and investments of almost $505 million. This is in 3 years with a very small staff, usually 2 or 3 people working on this program. So far, we have utilized $63,318,947. Actually, $1.5 million of that are so-called recycled funds, funds that have already been paid back to us. So in essence, in the funds that we received from Treasury, we've used about $61.5 million. Do not then say, okay, let's see now, $61.5 million subtracted from $78,365,264. Uh-oh, they're running out of money. Remember, we're making loans and lines of credit and some investments available. And those funds get repaid. And those funds earn interest and principal getting repaid. Therefore, we probably have a total of about $30 to $35 million left, because of the $17 million that is left from our original allocation, we still have received about $14 or $15 million of repaid funds, plus another couple of $1 million of interest and principal. So we have plenty of money available for this program. We've actually catalyzed almost $486 million worth of private sector funds in loans and investments, and created or retained about 4,200 jobs. The key thing is that for every dollar of this federal money that was allocated to us, we've managed to bring in $7.86 worth of private sector support for small businesses. It's a record that we're very proud of, but we've got a lot more to do. There are certain things that we can't do, so we don't want to fool you into anything. We can't do passive real estate. That's a very common thing. If you're a developer, we can help every company that wants to get established in your strip mall or in your building, but we can't help you build the building. And we also, of course, don't do housing. So we cannot do passive real estate. We can only do companies that are hiring permanent employees in either a service business or manufacturing or other businesses. We are also not able to finance ownership interests. It's a kind of a nebulous term that U.S. Treasury has put into this program. So far we have cornered them into admitting that it involves shares or stock. So we can do asset sales, but not stock or share sales. We also can't assist goodwill. Now, as you probably know, when there's an acquisition of one company by another, very often there's a large category called goodwill, where a number of intangibles are thrown in: customer lists, websites, intellectual property, patents, special techniques or tools. We can participate in financing for those kinds of tangibles and intangibles. It's just the word goodwill that we're not allowed to provide support for. So it's important when you see goodwill in an acquisition that you break down goodwill into its component parts. Now, if there is goodwill, that doesn't poison the entire deal. All it means is that we will be able to support the project with a companion loan. That is, a loan that does not involve any goodwill or shares. So a project might involve a line of credit and a term loan and an equipment loan and a property loan for real estate. We can participate in any one of those loans up to 50% as long as there is no goodwill or shares or stock involved. Of course, there are also certain industries or purposes that we're unable to support. For instance, we are not involved in any way in the manufacture, sale, wholesale or retail of firearms, tobacco products, sexually explicit materials. There are other industries. Just contact us if you have a question and we'll be glad to help you with it. One of our programs is called the Capital Access Program. Once upon a time, this was a very powerful program because it was pretty much the only program around. Now it's a program that only a very small number of banks use, and they use it for a number of reasons. Number one, it's very easy for them to use. Number two, we don't review their credit analysis or their credit decisions. Number three, it is an easy program for a bank that does a lot of small loans that just wants to get some support without going into the usual longer process of a participation loan. What this is sort of an insurance policy or an insurance reserve. In essence, a client goes to a bank for a loan. The bank makes the loan, but also charges a fairly hefty upfront fee of between 2 and 5%. That fee is then placed in an escrow account at the bank that's making a loan, and then that bank contacts DCEO and says, look, I am registering or enrolling this particular loan in the Capital Access Program. I have charged a fee of between 2 and 5%. Let's say it's 3%. Therefore, DCEO, since we are registering this particular loan in the program, we would like you to match the 3% fee. That fee is also put into the escrow account, so on that particular loan, where I mentioned the 3% fee, there's actually 6% of that loan in this escrow account. Since the bank makes a lot of these small loans, these fees build up. If the loans perform, then this reserve account or this escrow account builds up and acts as a reserve for the bank in the event that a loan goes bad. I'd like to skip to the next slide so I can illustrate it a little bit more simply. That green bucket is the escrow account at the lender's bank. On the left-hand side, you see the lender making a number of loans and taking fees from those particular borrowers. They then enroll the loan in our Capital Access Program, and then we match the fee. If the loans perform, the money in the bucket keeps building up. But if for some reason one of those loans under the lender banner goes bad, the bank would liquidate the company that has the bad loan, and if they're still owed principal or interest, they can then dip into the bucket to protect themselves. In essence, the bank is able to establish a reserve against their small loan portfolio without using their own capital. Again, this is a program that is not used very much now, but it's generally up to some small banks to use it. It is an expensive program for the borrower, but sometimes it's the only alternative available for the borrower. Our main program is our participation loan program. Well, what's a participation loan program? Client walks into the bank. No, I'm not starting a joke. Client walks into the bank and says, hey, I'm looking for some money. I need $1 million for this business proposition. The bank looks at the business plan of the borrower, says, it's a good business plan, and, we like you. You have a good credit score. You have a little equity, but you know what? You're in a service business, and we really don't like the collateral. Or you're not in a service business, but you're in a business that has very specialized collateral. Or maybe you don't have enough collateral. On the other hand, the bank may say, we like what you're doing, but we want you to put in some more of your own money, some more equity. We want to be able to see that you have skin in the game, is the expression that they use. What we do is we go in with the borrower to the bank, and we say to the bank, look, if you make this loan, we're willing to buy a portion of the loan and then fully subordinate our portion to the bank. What that means is if that loan goes bad, the bank would liquidate the company and apply the proceeds that they get from liquidating the company and any other collateral or security first to their own expenses in pursuing the liquidation, then to their own interest that's owed to the bank, including penalty interest, and then to the bank's principal. So in other words, the bank is paid expenses, interest, and principal before the state gets absolutely anything on its portion of the loan. That's why the banks regard what we do as a good substitute for equity from the borrower, and in some cases an enhancement of the collateral available to support the bank's loan. We have
Stanley?
several derivatives. Yes?
We have a question from the audience. The revolving line of credit, would that kind of be like a equity line of credit against your home or your business?
Somebody has gone ahead, and if they're reading the revolving line of credit, they're going too far.
Well, they're on the same slide that you're on right now.
Oh, yes. The revolving line of credit is for business purposes. We do not make revolving lines of credit available under a home equity line of credit. That's something that a bank would do, and that would be part of the equity investment by the borrower in their business.
Okay.
Okay? So
Thank you.
if somebody was asked by the bank to put in some equity in a project, and the borrower decided, okay, what I'm going to do is draw down some equity in my home in order to provide the equity in the business, then that's something that they would arrange with the bank. We're not involved in that. Okay?
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we have a standard program. We have a program for minority, women, disabled, and veteran-owned businesses, which may or may not be the best program for every minority, woman, disabled, or veteran-owned business. Depends on certain circumstances that I'll go into in a bit. We have a revolving line of credit facility where we assist banks in making revolving lines of credit available, usually for working capital, for things like discounting receivables or buying inventory or paying salaries, that kind of working capital need. And then we also support projects that are already supported by the SBA 7A and 504 programs. Let's talk about our standard program. First, there's the process that we have to go to. Right now, we have about 105 banks that are in our participation loan program. In order for a bank that's not in the program to get into the program, it's very simple. They have to sign our master agreement, which is about 40 pages, which has a lot of examples and samples and exhibits, forms, but it also has the guidelines. Basically, it's almost like a cookbook that we provide to the bank saying, okay, this is our arrangement, this is how we're going to work together, this is what you have to do, this is what we have to do, this is how we get our money to you, this is how you get our money back to us. So it's simply sort of an instruction manual that shows the responsibilities of all parties. Once a lender signs a master agreement, only once a bank signs that master agreement, every officer in every branch of that bank is in our program, and all of them are able to bring us deals to be supported with our participation amounts. Okay? Once they sign the master agreement, the documents for each project submitted to us is actually quite short and simple. The bank is required to electronically transmit to us a copy of the internal credit approval that is contingent on our being involved in the deal. We're looking for something that's in Microsoft Word or Excel, something we can cut and paste, because basically we're not going to bother the borrower with a whole lot of documentary requests. We're in essence going to do our research on the research that has already been done by the bank that they put together in their credit approval process within their own bank for their own underwriters. So we don't ask the bank to do anything extra in terms of their credit approval memoranda. We don't ask the borrower to do anything extra. Now, the lender does have to complete a one-page lender's application for participation. Actually, that's an exaggeration. They do about 1/4 of a page telling us who the lender, the actual officer is, who to contact, what the name of the client is, and how we've agreed to split the loan between us and the bank. The borrower fills out a couple of forms, mostly certifications, and something called an applicant's project proposal, where the borrower or the prospective borrower explains what they're going to do with the money. We basically have them on record that they're going to be using it for equipment or real estate or working capital. We get those forms. We generally take 2 to 3 weeks to secure our internal credit approvals because we have our own internal credit approval process. Well, we've shortened it in recent years, and the reason that we're saying 2 to 3 weeks is because we've been really, really busy. Usually it took us 2 weeks, but now we're pushing it to 3 because people are learning about our program and it's become very popular. Once we get our internal credit approval, we send an approval letter to the bank, basically saying, okay, we're in. We're buying a piece of this loan. We then ask the bank to send us back the document signed, and by the way, they can scan it back to us. So basically, it could be a same-day process. And once they sign that document, they're then able to disperse the full amount of the loan that includes our portion. The borrower does not have to worry about us settling up with the bank. The bank and we will work it out ourselves. We will not hold up the bank providing the funding to the borrower. So how much can we cover with this program here? Well, what we'll do is the lesser of 25% of the total project or 50% of the specific loan we're involved in, up to $2 million, with some eye on job creation and job retention. Boy, there's a lot of terms in there we better explain. What do we mean by the project? Well, very rarely are we asked to simply participate in one single loan. Usually there's a request for equipment, but also some real estate, and those are two different kinds of loans. And there may be a revolving line of credit involved in there. So generally the project, it may involve a number of different loans from the same lender. However, the project also includes loans from other lenders. It includes, for instance, under the SBA 504 program, it would include the SBA's portion. It would include any equity coming from the borrower. It would include any subordinated debt from shareholders. It would include any capital leases. If it's an acquisition, it might include some seller financing. If the real estate is going to be leased, it might be some leasehold improvements being provided by the lessor. So all of that becomes part of the project. And as you can see, sometimes 25% of an entire project can very easily be more than 50% of any particular piece of that project. Very often we'll have banks that are concerned about an equipment loan who are also willing to give a revolving line of credit, which they're not that concerned about because it is supported by receivables and inventory, it's short-term, it's self-liquidating. They may say, look, we want you to take a look at this project, and then after you've decided how much DCEO is willing to put into this particular project, we want you to put all of that money against the equipment loan that we're concerned about. So the bank tells us what portion of the project they want us to put our money in. In terms of job creation and job retention, we ask the borrower to make a serious and professional guess as to how many jobs they think they can create within the next 2 years. That's job creation. And if it's anywhere as reasonable number, we accept that particular number. On job retention, what we're looking to do is save jobs for the state of Illinois. It could be because a company is struggling, it needs to modernize, it needs to put in new product lines, it needs to expand or else it won't be able to compete, or it may be deciding that, we might want to move to another state where there might be some other opportunities. What we want to do is retain those jobs in Illinois. Therefore, if there's any job retention, what we do is we count the number of jobs that we are potentially retaining by assisting the loan. And then we ask, how many jobs do you think you'll create over the next 2 years? And we then add the job creation and job retention together, and we multiply that times a maximum of $50,000 per full-time equivalent to be created within the 2 years or any jobs at risk being retained. Okay? So it's the lesser of the number of jobs being created and retained times $50,000, 25% of the project, or 50% of the loan. Our maximum tenor, in other words, the maximum term that we can put our money out, is 10 years. That does not mean that you can't do a real estate deal where the amortization period is 20, 25, even 30 years. For the first 10 years, we will follow that amortization schedule. However, after 10 years, we need the loan to balloon so that we can get the rest of our money back. You see, we're trying to make sure that this program goes on forever and ever, and therefore we need to recycle our funds. If we lend them out for 25 or 30 years, we won't get them back quick enough to lend out to others. Therefore, after 10 years, we need whoever's going to refinance the balloon at the end of the initial loan period to pay us back, or the borrower can pay us back directly. Our interest rate is below market. Actually, it's a very simple formula. You take the interest rate charged by the bank on their portion, and you subtract 2%. Okay, if the bank is charging 5%, we're charging 3%. If on a line of credit, the bank is charging prime plus 3/4 or 4% in this current market, our rate is 2%, or prime minus 1 1/4. It's a way of providing some benefit to the borrower in addition to the risk mitigation that we provide to the bank. Again, as I mentioned, we go up to $50,000 per job created within 2 years or a risk job that's being retained. One of the great features of our program now, Advantage Illinois, over our old state program, is that we are now able to refinance. However, although we can refinance Bank A's loan with Bank B just at any time that the borrower requires that kind of refinancing, there are limitations on our refinancing Bank A's loan with the same bank. So if a bank,
Stanley,
yes?
I've had a comment from the audience that they can't hear. Can we do a quick sound check to see if everybody can hear? Please raise your hand with the little man at the top of the screen if you can hear us. All right. Okay, people can hear us. Please continue.
Okay, sorry. Uh, anyway, on refinancing, we can refinance an unrelated, one lender's loan with an unrelated lender, or as we put it here, Bank A's loan with Bank B, so that a borrower can get away from a bank that is unwilling or unable to help them by going to another bank. However, if Bank A would like us to refinance one of their own loans, there are certain hurdles. Number one, the loan has to be maturing or ballooning. Number two, the bank has to write a full credit write-up, not just a little short thing saying, hey, we want to refinance. Number three, the bank can't just refinance for the purpose of refinancing only. And number four, the bank has to provide significant new money. Now, Treasury hasn't quite defined what significant is, but we're pretty sure that they're looking at something like 20%. So if you have a line of credit for $1 million and Bank A would like to refinance that line of credit, they would probably have to provide the borrower with a 20% increment, or $1.2 million in the new line, in order for us to help them, assuming the other three issues or obstacles are met. We have a program for minority, women, disabled, and veteran-owned businesses. Instead of $2 million, we only go up to $200,000. Instead of going 10 years, we only go 7 years. Hey, wait a second, this is supposed to be a program to give special help to minority, women, disabled, and veteran-owned businesses. Well, as you can see from the small print, we're actually willing to go 40% of the project or 50% of the loan. 40% instead of 25% under our standard program. So how does that work? Well, this program is designed mostly for small retail businesses, franchises, the kinds of starting businesses that minority, women, disabled, and veteran entrepreneurs use to get into ownership of a business. Give you an example. Let's say there's a woman that wants to open a Domino's pizza franchise. She has a good credit score. She has some equity in her home. She has experience as an assistant manager of a Domino's pizza store. The bank likes the Domino's pizza franchise because they provide a lot of support, marketing, and training, and other kinds of support. But it costs $250,000 for that franchise. And our entrepreneur doesn't have that money. What we'll do is go into the bank and say, look, if you provide this $250,000 loan, we will buy up to $100,000 of it and fully subordinate our $100,000 to the bank's $150,000 exposure. And yet the bank still has first lien on absolutely all the assets and all the other collateral and security, including guarantees. So you can see how this really helps a minority, woman, disabled, or veteran-owned business to get started. This is the starting point for real empowerment in business community. Now, there's an effort to improve this program even further. It's now being worked on, and when we find out further information about that, we'll be sure to make sure that the market finds out about it. Revolving lines of credit. There are a lot of businesses that don't need to buy more equipment, and they don't need more real estate, but they need working capital. Business is going great, but their customers are asking for terms, so the company is basically invested in IOUs from their clients. Or company buys some new equipment, it's producing goods like crazy, they need more inventory. Or they need to hire people, and of course, you hire people, you have to pay them, and then they start producing eventually as your other employees do. So this is for short-term working capital type needs. The reason we have this separated is because the treatment is separated. Is separate. Under our participation loan program or standard program, we're typically talking about term loans, where the bank provides funding to the borrower all at once. Under a revolving line of credit program, the borrower borrows the money as they need it. And so that might not be all at once. So the bank actually holds the money until the borrower needs to borrow it. We are typically 25% of the project or 50% of the loan. So again, we are taking a portion of this revolving line of credit. When the borrower wants to borrow some money from the revolving line of credit, let's say it's $1 million revolving line of credit, and the borrower only wants to borrow $200,000, then if we have 25% of the project, then we would provide 25% of that $200,000 request, or $50,000. And the bank would provide the 75%, or $150,000. So it's a prorated sharing of each of these drawdowns that are made by the borrower. Because the bank is going to be holding the money and the borrower may not be using it, we're going to charge the bank a very small interest rate, 0.25% of the entire amount of our participation, just simply because it's against state law for them to hold the money and not pay any interest when it's really the borrower that we're trying to get the money to. Okie doke? Yes, our maximum tenor, by the way, is 2 years. Now, if a bank does a line of credit with us in support of their borrower, and then after 2 years they still need our help, we just ask them to reapply, and we're willing to consider extending our support for another 2 years. Now, we used to have some really terrific programs to support the SBA. I won't go into them because they were so good that the U.S. Treasury decided that they were too good, and they've asked us to terminate the programs. Some of those programs were actually iterations that we had during our state finance program days before Advantage Illinois, where we would do the equity portion under SBA 504 deals. However, according to the latest legislation, the U.S. Treasury is telling us that we cannot be involved in a deal that involves SBA or USDA or other government agency support if we're providing support for the same purpose as the government agency. So on an SBA 7A deal, if that 7A loan is for real estate, we cannot be involved in providing our Advantage Illinois support for real estate. But we can work with the bank on providing support for equipment or for working capital or any other purpose other than the same purpose that the SBA, in this case, is providing support for. Under the SBA 7A program, which, as you know, is a deficiency guarantee program, whatever the SBA is providing its guarantee support for is an area that we're not allowed to play in. We can only provide support for purposes other than what the SBA is providing support for in a separate loan. Here's a quick example. We've been working with a company that is planning on a $12 million expansion. $8 million of that expansion is for real estate. $4 million of that expansion is for equipment. The company was planning on using the SBA 504 program and doing a $12 million SBA 504 supported project. However, because of the change in our program, they've asked that they do an $8 million SBA 504 supported real estate project, and then we and the bank will split the $4 million for equipment, and therefore we're splitting that loan 50-50. The bank's interest rate on that particular portion was 5%. Our rate was going to be 3%. Therefore, the borrower was going to get support for this real estate portion at 4% fixed for 10 years. Pretty good, huh? So we can provide support as a companion lender under programs that are under projects that are supported by the SBA, but we have to make sure we're using different purposes. We're supporting different purposes. We also are one of 2 states in the entire United States that received support or approval from the U.S. Treasury to invest in venture capital directly. We are able to invest in common stock, preferred shares, or other equity or quasi-equity investments like convertible subordinated debentures. We targeted high-tech companies. We were not the lead investor. There had to be a lead investor who actually investigated the company and brought the investment to us to help them finish their investment rounds. We were also looking not to have a big part of the total investment, not more than 25%. Well, this program really took off, and within 6 months, we had done about 17 or 18 different deals, and we decided, okay, this is going a little too fast. We need to take a rest. So right now, this program is indefinitely suspended while we manage the deals, the investments that we now have. Whether or not we get back into venture capital lending or venture capital investment is up to the new DCEO management. But this is a program that we invested several $1 million in, and so far it looks pretty good. Now, we have a website, and we're very proud of the website because it's actually very user-friendly. This website is under the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity homepage. If you go to the DCEO homepage, look for where in the blue section near the top it says Small Business Assistance. If you click on that, there's a drop-down formula or drop-down table, and one of the options is Financing Your Business or Financing Options. If you click on that, you will then get to 2 options. One is, I think, Enterprise Zone Financing, and the other one is Advantage Illinois. You want to click on Advantage Illinois, and that'll get you to this page that you see pictured here. Under Advantage Illinois, on the right-hand side, you'll see descriptions of our Capital Access Program, our Participation Loan Program, and our Invest Illinois Venture Fund. Under that, you'll see where it says Lenders. That's where banks go in order to join our program and in order to get the application documents they need for each and every deal that they bring to us. So that's a great place in case your bank is not on our list of participating lenders. That's a great place for you to direct your bank to go in order to sign up. And signing up is a very easy process for your bank. There are some frequently asked questions there. You can peruse those if you wish. However, an important part for borrowers to check out is the section there that says Advantage Illinois Participating Institutions. That's the last link under the section that says Downloads. If you click on that, you will see the list of about 105 banks that are already participating institutions in our Advantage Illinois program. Now, you will note that the very largest banks are not in this program. They've just decided maybe they're too good or too big, too nationally spread to deal with each state's programs. However, there are lots of banks that are in that program, that are in our program, that are listed there. Please ignore the addresses that you see in that list. Okay, there are addresses there that indicate the office of that bank that signed our master agreement. So for instance, on MB Financial, I think you'll see them listed under Rosemont, Illinois. Borrowers do not have to go, in this particular case, to MB Financial's branch in Rosemont, Illinois. They just go to any MB Financial branch or any Wintrust Bank branch or any American Chartered Bank branch or any one of the other banks that are there. If the particular banker that you're dealing with at a particular branch does not know about Advantage Illinois programs, please contact me and I'll be glad to not only speak with them, but if necessary to visit the bank with you in order to get them either signed up for the program or to help you with your particular loan need. And the next and easiest slide for me to put together is our thank you slide.
Well, thank you, Stan, for sharing all of that great information with us about Advantage Illinois. It's a great resource for all of our Illinois small businesses. It is something that we look forward to being able to share on a regular basis with our guests who are on the webinar as well as those who are going to be listening to the recording. What we would like to do right now is encourage you to ask any final questions that you have so that we might answer those for you, and take just a moment to complete our poll questions here. We do need to show you that we have links here that are available to you, and oops, sorry folks, navigate to those slides for your use. And we want to thank Stanley for joining us today with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And we're going to end our recording now, but we will leave the pod open so that you can download the links.